Many people don't realise that Kirkstall once had its own power station. Opened in 1930, this 200 megawatt coal-fired station provided much of North and Western Leeds' electricity until it was decommissioned in 1976. But this isn't about the history of the power station. We've already talked about that. This short episode is about one single night at the station. A single tragic accident, an immense act of bravery. It is the early hours of the morning on Wednesday the 24th of November, 1948. A dense, freezing fog hung thick over the Kirkstall Valley, blanketing the station. On duty were Chief Engineer Douglas Hudson, Switch Operator William Westerman, and Apprentice Frank Ledger. At 1:35 a.m, the Central Electricity Generating Board, who ran the national grid, sent a message to Kirkstall Station, asking it to isolate certain switches. This was likely due to excess load in the network, due to the low usage at this time of night. The three men proceeded to the switchyard, which is outside the main control room. The icy rain and fog was there to greet them. William Westerman took up position under a mass of overhead electricity lines and prepared to disengage the switch, causing a series of large overhead contacts to move away from their connection, severing the flow of electricity. Douglas gave the signal. As William disengaged the switch, a huge arc of electricity developed between the contactors. Using the freezing fog around it as a conductor, the arc rapidly and exponentially grew in power. Within less than a few seconds, an enormous explosion occurred, and William, having turned to run, bore the full force of it from his back and was blown off the platform along with apprentice Frank. Douglas looked towards the site of the explosion and realised that one of the oil-filled power transformers had exploded, coating William in burning oil and igniting his clothes. Douglas, without hesitation, ran to William and began to extinguish the flames with his bare hands, receiving severe burns himself. Meanwhile, North Leeds had been plunged into darkness. The electric pumps operating the water supply in several locations stopped. Thousands of households in Kirkstall, Moortown, Chapel Allerton, Roundhay, Alwoodley and more were without power or water. Emergency generators were activated at Leeds General Infirmary. Traffic signals shut off. Street lighting went dark. Production was halted and more than a ton of biscuits were destroyed at the York Road works of Stokes and Dalton. At Montague Burton's clothing factory in Bermontoffs, workers arrived at 8 a.m. to find the building in a rare silence as machines were still without power. Back at the station, in the middle of the dark and freezing night, Douglas had extinguished the flames engulfing William's body and sent the apprentice to find help for William. Douglas, meanwhile, despite his injuries, knowing the seriousness of the situation and the potential danger the city was in, immediately went about restoring power at the station. After joining William and Frank at the hospital to treat his burned hands, Douglas insisted on returning to the station to oversee repair work throughout the next day. Sadly, William, who had sustained intense burns to a large portion of his back, did not survive. After an early morning rush for candles, much of North Leeds' power and water was finally reinstated by late Wednesday evening, with several substations throughout the network requiring repair from the knock-on effects of the damage from this single explosion. 18 months later, Douglas, who lived with his brother, sister-in-law and niece above their dress shop on Roundhay Road, received the King's Commendation for brave conduct. The winter of 1948 was marked by several more instances of intense fog, as were many of the following years, culminating in London's Great Smog of 1952, a single air pollution event that is thought to have killed up to 4,000 people and made a further 100,000 ill. One of the many causes? Cities had power stations burning huge amounts of coal right on their doorsteps. Why? Because we hadn't worked out how to transport electricity at a high enough voltage to be able to do it over very long distances. So power stations were located where the power was needed. London had Battersea, Leeds had Kirkstall, and, thankfully, the Yorkshire grit of Douglas Hudson. Thank you so much for listening to this short but special episode of Leeds Echoes. If you enjoyed it, let me know. In the meantime, stay safe. Take care.